The world spun in a sickening blur as I came to, my head pounding like someone had taken a hammer to it. I was in a hospital bed at St. Joseph's Medical Center in Tacoma, surrounded by the sharp scent of disinfectant and the steady beep of a monitor tracking my heart. My left arm was in a sling, my ribs ached with every breath, and a thick bandage wrapped around my forehead. The car accident 3 days ago had left me with a concussion, a dislocated shoulder, and 2 cracked ribs. I could still hear the screech of tires, the crunch of metal, and my sister Lila's scream as my Honda Civic slammed into a utility pole. She'd been behind the wheel, not me, tearing down a back road at dusk because she wanted to feel the wind on her way to some party she hadn't stopped talking about. I'd let her borrow my car, my pride and joy, because she'd begged, saying her old clunker wouldn't make it. Now, I was the one paying the price, stuck in this sterile room with flickering fluorescent lights and a view of a concrete courtyard. The worst part wasn't the pain, it was knowing Lila walked away with just a few scratches while I was here, broken and bruised. Lila was 24, 2 years younger than me, and she'd always been the reckless one. Growing up in our small house in Puyallup, she'd sneak out at night, throw parties when our parents were away, and charm her way out of trouble with a smile. I was the responsible one, working as a barista to save for community college, while she flitted between jobs and boyfriends. My car, a 2018 Civic I'd bought used after years of saving, was my ticket to independence. I'd polished it every weekend, kept the interior spotless, even named it blue after its shimmering paint. Lila had no respect for it. When she showed up at my apartment that evening, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun and her eyes sparkling with excitement, she'd pleaded to borrow it for just a few hours. Her own car, a beat-up sedan, was in the shop again, and she had big plans. A date with some guy named Bryce she'd met online, followed by a party at his friend's lake house. "Come on, Evelyn, I'll be careful," she'd said, tossing me that grin that always got her what she wanted. Against my better judgment, I handed her the keys, but I insisted on coming along to keep an eye on her. That was my mistake. The drive started fine, with Lila blasting pop music and singing off-key, but as we hit the winding roads near the lake, she got reckless. She took curves too fast, laughing as I gripped the passenger door and told her to slow down. "Relax, Evelyn, I've got this," she snapped, cranking the music louder. I should have made her pull over, but I didn't. Then, on a sharp turn, she misjudged the speed, and the car skidded off the road. The last thing I remembered was the pole looming in the headlights before everything went black. When I woke up in the ambulance, Lila was sitting nearby, her face pale but unmarked, muttering about how the road was too dark. Now in the hospital, I hadn't seen her since. My parents, Karen and Tom, had visited the first day, but their reaction left me stunned. They stormed into my room, their faces red with anger, not concern. "Evelyn, how could you let this happen?" Mom shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. "Lila's devastated. Her big night was ruined because of this mess." Dad chimed in, saying I should have known better than to distract Lila while she was driving. They didn't ask about my injuries, didn't care that I was the one in the hospital bed. Instead, they grounded me like I was 16 again for causing drama and ruining Lila's day. Their words hit harder than the crash. I lay there, staring at the ceiling tiles, each one a perfect square with tiny black specks, trying to process how I was the villain in their story. Lila had crashed my car, totaled it according to the police report a nurse had mentioned, and yet I was the one being punished. My parents had always favored Lila, making excuses for her mistakes while holding me to an impossible standard. When we were kids, she'd broken my favorite ceramic mug and blamed me for leaving it out. They believed her. When she flunked out of high school, they said it was the teacher's fault. But when I got a B in math, they lectured me for weeks. This, though, was a new low. I tried calling Lila, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I texted her, asking why she hadn't visited, but got no reply. The nurses, at least, were kind. One, a guy named Marcus, with a shaved head and a warm smile, brought me extra pudding cups and checked on me during his rounds. "Family can be rough," he said when I told him about my parents. "Focus on getting better." I nodded, but my mind was on Lila, wondering how she could just walk away from this. By day 4, I was stable enough to sit up, though every movement sent pain shooting through my ribs. Marcus helped me get my phone from the bedside drawer, and I checked my insurance app. The news was grim, My car was a total loss, and the claim was pending because Lila wasn't listed on my policy. I'd have to cover the deductible myself, and with my barista wages, that was going to wipe out my savings. Worse, I found Lila's latest ex-post, a selfie at a coffee shop. Her lips glossy, captioned, "Starting fresh after a rough week." No mention of the crash, no apology, just her moving on like nothing happened. Rage bubbled up inside me, but I was too weak to do anything about it. My parents called that afternoon, not to check on me, but to remind me I was grounded for a month once I got home. "You need to think about how your actions affect Lila," Dad said, his voice cold. I hung up, tears stinging my eyes. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let this slide. Lila had to face the consequences, and I was going to make sure of it. The hospital room felt like a cage, its beige walls closing in as I lay there, my ribs screaming with every breath. My phone became my lifeline, a glowing rectangle that held the evidence of Layla's betrayal. I kept refreshing her ex profile, each new post a fresh stab of anger. She'd added a photo of herself at a nail salon, her fingers splayed to show off a sparkly manicure captioned, "Treating myself to some sparkle." It was unbelievable. She'd totaled my car, put me in the hospital, and was now pampering herself without a shred of guilt. I saved the screenshot, adding it to a folder I'd started on my phone labeled Lila Evidence. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I needed proof of her carefree attitude while I was stuck here, drowning in medical bills and pain. The nurses noticed my mood souring. Marcus, during his evening rounds, set a cup of apple juice on my tray and gave me a knowing look. "You're stewing over something," he said, adjusting my IV. I spilled the whole story. Lila's recklessness, my parents' unfair blame, the insurance mess. He listened, nodding, and then said, "You can't change your family, Evelyn, but you can fight for what's right. Don't let them walk all over you." His words stuck with me, a spark of resolve in the fog of my anger. I called my insurance company the next morning, my voice shaky but determined. The representative, a woman named Priya with a calm, professional tone, confirmed that Lila's unauthorized use of my car complicated the claim. "Since she wasn't on your policy, you may be liable for the damages," she explained. My heart sank. My savings account had less than $2,000, nowhere near enough to cover a totaled car and a deductible. I asked if I could file a claim against Lila, and Priya suggested I consult a lawyer for a civil case. "You'd need to prove she was at fault," she said. That's when I remembered the police report. A cop named Officer Torres had visited the day after the accident, but I'd been too groggy to give a full statement. I called the station and asked for him. Torres was gruff but patient, explaining that the report listed Lila as the driver and noted her excessive speed as the cause. "You want to press charges? That's your call," he said, "but you'll need to come to the station once you're out." I thanked him, my mind racing. Charges against Lila? The thought was daunting. She was my sister, after all. But so was the idea of losing everything I'd worked for because of her. My parents visited again on day 6, their faces set in the same disapproving scowls. Mom clutched her purse, her lips pursed, while Dad stood by the door, arms crossed. "Evelyn, we're disappointed in you," Mom started, not even sitting down. "Layla's been crying nonstop about that car. You should have been more responsible." I stared at them incredulous. "She crashed my car," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm in the hospital because of her." Dad waved a hand, dismissing me. "You were in the car, Evelyn. You could have stopped her." I wanted to scream that I'd tried, that I'd begged her to slow down, but they didn't care. They never did when it came to Layla. They left after 10 minutes, reminding me I was still grounded and that I needed to make things right with my sister. As soon as they were gone, I called my friend Sasha, a barista at the same coffee shop where I worked. She'd been texting me daily, offering to bring food or run errands. "Sasha, I need help," I said, explaining the situation. She didn't hesitate. "I'm coming over after my shift," she promised, "and I'm bringing my cousin Leo. He's a paralegal, knows some legal stuff." Sasha and Leo arrived that evening, her with a bag of tacos, and him with a notepad and a serious expression. Leo was lanky, with glasses and a quiet intensity, and he listened as I laid out the details. The crash, Leo's posts, my parents' reaction, the insurance nightmare. He took notes, asking about the police report and any witnesses. "You've got a case," he said finally. "You could sue Layla for damages. Car, medical bills, even pain and suffering. The police report and her post on X are solid evidence of her negligence and lack of remorse." He suggested contacting a lawyer who specialized in personal injury and offered to recommend one, a woman named Carla, who worked pro bono for cases like mine. I felt a flicker of hope, but also dread. Suing my sister would tear our family apart, but letting her skate free wasn't an option. Sasha squeezed my hand, her eyes fierce. "Lila doesn't get to ruin your life and walk away," she said. "We've got your back." They stayed until visiting hours ended, leaving me with a plan: contact Carla, gather more evidence, and prepare for a fight. The next day, I called Carla, who had a no-nonsense voice that cut through my anxiety like a knife. She agreed to take my case, saying the police report and Lila's ex-post made it a strong one. "We'll file for damages and request the insurance company pursue Lila for the claim," she said. "You focus on healing. I'll handle the paperwork." I spent the rest of the day scrolling through Lila's ex profile again, saving every post that showed her gallivanting while I suffered. One photo showed her at a club, dancing with Bryce, captioned "New night, new vibes." My anger hardened into resolve. I also found a text from Lila, sent late the previous night. "Evelyn, why are you making this a big deal? It was an accident." No apology, no concern for my injuries, just her usual deflection. I didn't respond, forwarding the text to Carla instead. By the time Marcus came by for his rounds, I was typing up a timeline of the crash for Carla, my fingers flying over my phone. "You look like you're on a mission," he said, grinning. I nodded, feeling stronger than I had in days. Lila wasn't going to get away with this, and I was done being the family scapegoat. My hospital stay stretched into a second week, each day a grind of pain and determination. The surgery to reset my shoulder went smoothly, but the recovery was brutal. Every cough or laugh sent sharp stabs through my ribs, and physical therapy was scheduled to start once I was discharged. My laptop, brought by Sasha, became my command center. I emailed Carla daily, sending her new screenshots of Lila's ex-posts, which now included a shopping spree at a boutique, her bags piled high with clothes she couldn't possibly afford on her part-time retail job. "Retail therapy hits different," she'd captioned it, oblivious to the irony. Carla was building a case, using the police report, my medical records, and Lila's flippant posts to show her negligence and lack of remorse. "We're going for full damages," Carla told me over the phone, her voice steady. "The car, your medical expenses, lost wages, and emotional distress. The evidence is airtight." I felt a surge of vindication, but also a knot of unease. Suing Lila meant burning bridges with my parents, who still called daily to lecture me about fixing things with her. I ignored their calls, letting them go to voicemail, their disappointed tones piling up like unpaid bills. Sasha and Leo visited again, bringing a stack of my favorite sci-fi novels to keep me occupied. Sasha also brought news from the coffee shop. Our boss had agreed to hold my job until I recovered, which was a small relief. Leo had spoken to Carla and confirmed she'd filed the lawsuit against Lila, seeking $25,000 to cover the car, my medical bills, and therapy costs. "The insurance company is cooperating," he said, pushing up his glasses. "They're pursuing Lila for the claim, since she wasn't authorized to drive." I nodded, grateful but overwhelmed. The idea of Lila facing real consequences felt right, but I couldn't shake the image of her tearful face from when we were kids, the rare time she'd let her guard down. Still, I pushed the guilt aside. She'd made her choice, and I wasn't going to let her recklessness ruin my life. That evening, I got a call from Officer Torres. "We've served Lila with the lawsuit papers," he said. "She's claiming you gave her permission to drive, but the report and your statement contradict that." He warned me she might try to contact me, and sure enough, an hour later, a text from Lila popped up. "Evelyn, a lawsuit? Are you serious? You're ruining my life." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the reply button, but I didn't respond. Carla's advice echoed in my head. Don't engage. The day before my discharge, Carla called with an update that made my heart race. The insurance company had denied Lila's claim to dispute liability, meaning she was on the hook for the car's full value, $18,000. On top of that, the lawsuit was moving forward, and Carla had requested a court date. "Lila's been dodging our calls," she said, but her ex-posts show she's back in Puyallup, acting like nothing's wrong. I checked her profile and saw a new photo. Lila at a bar, laughing with Bryce, captioned, "Good company fixes everything." My jaw clenched. She was still living in her bubble, untouched by the chaos she'd caused. I forwarded the post to Carla, who replied with a single word, "Perfect." The hospital discharged me the next morning, and Sasha drove me to my apartment, my arm still in a sling and my ribs tender. Stepping into my small living room, with its familiar couch and potted plants, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. But the victory was short-lived. My parents showed up that afternoon, their faces stormy. "Evelyn, this lawsuit is ridiculous," Mom snapped, standing in my doorway. "You're tearing this family apart over a car." I stood my ground, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. "Lila crashed my car, Mom. She put me in the hospital. I'm not the one tearing anything apart." They left without another word, their silence louder than any argument. Physical therapy started a few days later, a grueling process of stretching and strengthening my shoulder under the watchful eye of a therapist named Rachel. Each session left me exhausted, but stronger, mirroring the fight I was waging outside the clinic. Carla called with more good news. Lila had missed a court deadline to respond to the lawsuit, weakening her case. The insurance company had also sent her a bill for the car, and her failure to pay meant they were garnishing her wages. I imagined Lila's face when she saw her paycheck shrink, and it brought a grim satisfaction. Her ex-posts slowed down, the glitzy photos replaced by vague complaints about tough times. One post hinted at her car being repossessed, and I wondered if she was finally feeling the weight of her actions. Sasha and Leo kept me grounded, stopping by with takeout and updates. Leo had dug into Lila's finances and found she'd maxed out 2 credit cards, likely to keep up her lifestyle after the crash. "She's in deep," he said, shaking his head. "This lawsuit might force her to get real." A month later, the court date arrived. I sat in the small courtroom, my sling gone but my ribs still aching. As Carla presented our case, Lila showed up, her hair flat and her eyes red, with no lawyer. She tried to argue that I'd pressured her to drive, but the judge wasn't buying it. The police report, my medical records, and her own ex-post painted a clear picture of her negligence. The judge awarded me $22,000, covering the car, my bills and lost wages. Lila's face crumpled, but she didn't look at me. As we left the courtroom, Carla squeezed my shoulder. "You did it, Evelyn. You stood up for yourself." I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in months. Back at my apartment, I deleted Lila's number from my phone and unfollowed her on X. My parents hadn't spoken to me since our last fight, but that was their choice. I was done carrying their blame or Lila's mistakes. With the insurance money and the lawsuit payout, I bought a used Subaru, naming it Phoenix for a fresh start. As I drove it home, the road stretching ahead, I felt free not just from the hospital but from the weight of a family that had never seen me.